Charlotte Harper had always been drawn to the peculiar, the forgotten relics of bygone eras. So, when she stumbled upon the estate sale at the edge of town, a shiver of anticipation ran down her spine. The sprawling Victorian mansion seemed to hum with unseen stories, each room whispering secrets into the dust-laden air. It was in a dimly lit corner of the attic that she found it, an ornately framed mirror, its silver surface dulled with age. Charlotte ran a hand over the intricate carvings that adorned the frame, her fingers tracing the ghostly outlines of forgotten symbols. An inexplicable pull drew her to the mirror, its tarnished surface seeming to beckon her closer. The air around it felt heavy, charged with an unsettling energy that sent a prickle of unease across her skin. Yet there was an undeniable allure to its antique beauty, a siren song that whispered promises of forgotten elegance. Without hesitation, Charlotte decided to purchase the mirror. It was an impulse buy, fueled by an inexplicable fascination with the forgotten relic. Little did she know that this seemingly innocuous antique held within its depths a darkness that threatened to consume her, a haunting reflection of a reality she could scarcely comprehend. The mirror found its place in Charlotte's living room, positioned above the antique fireplace mantel. It was an heirloom, passed down through generations, carrying with it whispers of the past. It was a jarring contrast to the modern minimalist decor, a relic from another era that seemed almost out of place. Yet it exuded a certain eerie charm that captivated her guests, drawing their eyes and sparking conversations about its origins and history. However, Charlotte began noticing subtle discrepancies in the mirror's reflection, small anomalies that seemed to defy explanation. It started with insignificant details, a vase out of place, a slight shift in the arrangement of objects, a book missing from the shelf, its absence glaringly obvious in the reflection but not in reality. At first she dismissed these inconsistencies as tricks of the light or her own forgetfulness, rationalizing them away with a nervous laugh. As days turned into nights, a creeping unease began to settle in Charlotte's heart, a gnawing feeling that something was amiss. The discrepancies in the mirror's reflection grew more frequent, more pronounced, as if the mirror was trying to communicate something. It was as if the mirror held a subtle distortion, a bending of reality that her rational mind struggled to grasp, leaving her questioning her own sanity. Shadows seemed to linger a moment too long in its depths, their presence almost tangible. Fleeting glimpses of movement flickered at the edge of her vision, vanishing before she could fully comprehend them. One evening, as Charlotte passed by the mirror, she caught a glimpse of something truly unsettling, a sight that sent chills down her spine. Her reflection remained unchanged, but the room behind her was different, warped into an unsettling tableau that defied logic. Furniture was overturned, paintings askew, as if a violent storm had swept through the room. A palpable sense of dread seemed to seep from the mirrored surface, an oppressive weight that settled in her chest. The familiar comfort of her apartment had been replaced by an unnerving stillness, a silence that felt almost alive, a vacant silence that pressed in on her like an unseen hand, squeezing the air from the room. Her heart pounded in her chest, a frantic rhythm against the suffocating silence that had descended upon the room, leaving her gasping for breath. The unsettling occurrences continued to escalate, each incident chipping away at Charlotte's composure. The mirror's reflection became increasingly discordant with reality, no longer limited to misplaced objects but extending to temporal anomalies. Time seemed to warp and bend within the mirror's frame. She saw fleeting glimpses of herself, days older, her face etched with a haunting dread she couldn't place. One particularly chilling evening, as Charlotte stood before the antique mirror, she noticed a faint flicker of movement in the reflection behind her. Her breath hitched in her throat as she slowly turned, her heart pounding against her ribs like a captive bird. The room was empty, bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun, yet an unshakable feeling of unease clung to her like a shroud. Turning back to the mirror, she found her reflection staring back at her, a look of dawning horror etched upon her features. The terror that twisted its way across her reflection's face mirrored her own growing fear. It was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore the unsettling feeling that the mirror was no longer merely reflecting reality, but was beginning to influence it. The line between the tangible and the spectral was blurring, and Charlotte found herself questioning her own sanity. Section 4. Whispers of Dread. The visions in the mirror grew increasingly vivid, morphing from subtle distortions to terrifying glimpses of potential futures. One recurring vision haunted Charlotte's waking hours, a fiery inferno engulfing her apartment building. Her own screams echoing in her ears as flames trapped her within her home. Fear became a constant companion, a knot of dread that tightened its grip with each passing day. Sleep offered no respite from the haunting images that plagued her waking hours. Nightmares, vivid and horrifying, became a nightly torment. The mirror, a looming presence in her dreams, reflected back twisted versions of her deepest fears, amplifying them until they threatened to consume her sanity. The once comforting familiarity of her apartment transformed into a menacing labyrinth, each corner holding the potential for terror. The reflection of her once peaceful home was now a distorted hellscape, a terrifying mockery of the life she once knew. The fear became a tangible entity, a suffocating presence that permeated every aspect of her existence. Power he had awakened. Others claimed that his spirit remained trapped within the mirror, forever bound to the object of his obsession. The mirror, now a relic of dark history, continued to hold the echoes of Thornwood's madness, a silent witness to the tragic tale of an artisan's obsession. Section 6. The Mirror's Gaze. With each horrifying revelation, Charlotte felt a growing sense of dread. The mirror was not merely an object reflecting her image, but a conduit to something ancient and malevolent. She realized with chilling certainty that Elias Thornwood's obsession had infused the mirror with a sinister sentience. It was as if the mirror itself was watching her, studying her deepest fears and insecurities, twisting them into horrifying visions that chipped away at her sanity. The air around the mirror grew heavy, thick with an unseen energy that pressed against her like a physical force. The temperature plummeted, sending a shiver down her spine despite the warmth of the summer night. Charlotte felt a cold dread seep into her bones, a creeping terror that whispered of unseen eyes watching her every move. Charlotte tried to break free from the mirror's hold, to sever the unsettling connection she felt with the artisan's creation. She attempted to remove the mirror from her apartment, but it was as if it had rooted itself to the wall, its weight impossible to budge. Panic welled up within her, a suffocating wave of terror that threatened to drown her in its icy grip. Section 7. A haunting realization. Days turned into an agonizing blur as Charlotte found herself trapped in a terrifying spiral of fear and paranoia. Each passing moment seemed to stretch into an eternity, filled with an unshakable sense of dread. The mirror's visions became her constant tormentor, each one a horrifying glimpse into a possible future she was powerless to prevent. These visions were not just fleeting images, they were vivid, nightmarish scenes that played out in excruciating detail. The line between reality and the mirror's reflection blurred, leaving her questioning her sanity. She could no longer distinguish between what was real and what was a product of the mirror's malevolent influence. She was adrift in a sea of uncertainty, the once solid ground of her reality crumbling beneath her feet. Every step she took felt like it could be her last, as if the very fabric of her existence was unraveling. Charlotte tried to rationalize the terrifying events, desperately seeking a logical explanation for the horrors unfolding before her very eyes. She pored over countless books and articles, hoping to find some semblance of understanding. She consulted with antique experts, paranormal investigators, even a priest, but no one believed her story. Each expert she approached offered only skepticism and dismissive glances. They dismissed her claims as an overactive imagination or, worse, a descent into madness. Their disbelief only added to her growing sense of desperation and isolation. Their skepticism only served to deepen her isolation, leaving her feeling trapped and utterly alone. The walls of her home seemed to close in on her, amplifying her sense of entrapment. The relentless torment of the mirror began to take its toll. Her mind was a battlefield, constantly under siege by the horrific visions that the mirror conjured. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by a constant state of anxiety and dread. Each night was a struggle, her mind racing with fear and anticipation of the next vision. Her appetite vanished, and her reflection in the mirror was that of a haggard stranger, her eyes hollowed by fear, her skin ashen and drawn. The toll on her physical health was undeniable as she wasted away before her own eyes. The once vibrant young woman was slowly being consumed by the darkness that emanated from the antique mirror, its insidious influence seeping into her very being. The mirror's malevolence was like a dark cloud, overshadowing every aspect of her life, leaving her a mere shadow of her former self.